We want to get right to a big one out of New York City here as well. This has to do with a brutal attack on two NYPD officers that happened as they continue to investigate this and try to decide what comes next from here. But in the meantime, there is growing outrage over the handling of this. Let's bring in right now Fox 5's Lisa Evers. She joins us live right now. Lisa, thanks so much for being here. Walk us through where things stand in this investigation.
Well, Lexie, this is one of those incidents that is touching on a lot of sore nerves with New Yorkers on a variety of levels. One is the migrant crisis, which continues to be out of control in New York City in a lot of different ways and also costing taxpayers a lot of money. The other is the current state of the laws, where basically you can commit a crime, you can assault a police officer, and you don't even get held in jail overnight. One of the suspects in this case, now this happened with last week, two police officers are on patrol in Times Square, and you see the video there right now. They're on patrol. They get rushed by this group of at least 14 migrants, and they start beating them and they start assaulting them. Thank God the police officers suffered minor injuries. They are going to be okay. Obviously, it's very traumatic, and you see this going on. Now, then what happens after that? And again, this is in the middle of Times Square, where there have been reports of migrant groups of them going into stores and stealing, shoplifting, taking things en masse. And when there's a group of them like that, it's very hard for a store owner, for store security. And as you can see here, when the police are outnumbered like that and they're knocked to the ground and they're stomped, they're beaten, they're hit, there's very little that they can do. So the police are now telling us that there were at least 14 involved in this assault. 6 of them have been arrested. 5 of them were arrested, went before the judge, and actually released. And they're still looking for others. So this outrage just continued to grow. People were very upset with the Manhattan DA, who has had questions raised about the way he was running his office in the past because of changes in the law. He was basically following New York state laws that reduced bail and did away with bail in some very serious crimes. Now, in the past, if you assaulted a police officer, that was considered a serious felony. You were definitely doing some time. You were definitely going to be held in jail until that particular court date. So what happened now was, in this case, the five of the 6 that were taken in, they were released right away. One of them walking out of the precinct is flipping making an obscene hand gesture towards the media and towards the other police officers that are there, like the whole thing is a big joke. So the Manhattan DA over the weekend, Alvin Bragg, he announced that he will be convening a grand jury on Tuesday to present this evidence to the grand jury. He says it's clear from what we're seeing on the video, there's a lot more people involved in this than we were able to identify. We're going to present the video evidence and other evidence that we have to the grand jury and see if we can get other charges brought that are more serious. Now, the other issue with this too is Times Square is one of the most heavily patrolled areas in New York City. It's also one of the areas in New York City, probably the United States and maybe even beyond, that has the most video camera surveillance, because you have the police video camera surveillances system that is plugged into every store, every hotel, every restaurant, every camera that is facing out on the streets in the Times Square area. This was all as a result of terror attack attempts in the past. So there's a tremendous amount of video surveillance. How much use it's going to be when you can see people have hoods up. They have hoods up. Some of them are wearing masks. It's very difficult for them to get any kind of a recognition of them. And but they are clear that they are migrants, and that this was just totally unacceptable. But it's pouring salt in the wound of many New Yorkers who have seen neighborhoods overrun by migrant shelters. They've seen shoplifting. They've seen their food banks being overrun by migrants because they didn't like the food that were being served at the hotels. There was news about prepaid debit cards being given to them, and a lot of New Yorkers who are having trouble just making ends meet and paying these increasing rents are saying, why are people bending over backwards for them? If we assaulted a police officer, there's no way we would be right out the door like that. And they're also saying that the benefits that they're getting is just encouraging more and more to come in. But when you're talking about large groups of young men with no jobs, no schooling, no identification, no papers able to get work, but yet they're welcoming them in and bringing them in like this, saying, hey, you can stay in a hotel in New York for 30 days. These are the kinds of things that are going to happen. And it's coming it's unfortunate, Lexie, at this particular time that it's happening because 2023, a lot of crimes, except for assaults like this, but a lot of major crime categories in New York City went down. The police got a handle on shootings. They got which were devastating many neighborhoods, on especially gang shootings. They got a handle on a lot of murders, and then now comes this migrant influx, and clearly we're talking about very cold weather in January. Imagine what it's going to be like in the spring when everybody is outside, Lexie.
Yeah, you touch on so many good points there, Lisa. First and foremost, we appreciate that update. And it's interesting, too, because I spoke with a former NYPD detective last week when this video was really first starting to come out. And he said, can you imagine if we went to one of their countries and attacked their police officers, how that would be handled? And so, understandably so, people are really frustrated, really angry about this. And Lisa, I wanted to ask you, too, about rumors of some of the people who were involved in this attack going to California. Is there any update on where some of these people might be?
We're trying to get an update on that, Lexi. We don't have that yet, but some of them just got on buses and left. And again, when there's no system, you don't know who's coming across the border. You don't know who is in your city. This is a very dangerous time in the world, just in terms of stability, in terms of politics, in terms of conflicts that are raging in a lot of different places. This is a very dangerous time to be having that many people come across the border, come into our city, not even knowing who they are. They don't even have to get fingerprinted. They don't have to fill out an application of any kind. I mean, they're literally just showing up. We have no idea who they are. And I think it's very scary. And I think that New Yorkers, like people in a lot of other cities across the United States, have just had enough. They're like, our taxes are so high that we're trying our best to really stay here and make things work here. But it's just, people are really fed up, Lexi.
Yeah, I can only imagine. And Lisa, I know that Governor Hochul had said before that she was open to the idea of deporting these migrants involved in the attack. Has Eric Adams, the mayor, has he said anything as of this weekend?
Not as of this weekend, but I'm sure that's going to be he's going to be asked about it this week. And the fact of the matter is that why should that even be controversial? You're in the country illegally. You're committing a crime. You're attacking a police officer, which, as Police Commissioner Edward Caban said, this is like attacking the American system. You're like attacking America. You're attacking a representative, a person who is putting their life on the line in order to protect other citizens and other people who are here. And then you do this. There should be no question. Why should we be spending money, $40,000 or $50,000 a year, housing this person in a jail? Why not just send them back? And the fact that that is so controversial is just a sign of how much common sense is missing from this entire situation and scenario. It's really sad, and it's sad to me about for the people that are, the low income and moderate income working people in New York who are really struggling to make ends meet with the inflation that still is here, despite what some of the people out of Washington are saying. The inflation that is still a very real fact. The fact that they're trying to deal with increasing prices of everything, increasing price of rent, increasing price of transportation, public transportation, all of these things. And yet here they see people just coming in and not even respecting the country and our legal system in the most basic manner. It's outrageous. And a lot of people, this really put them over the top, I think, Lexi.
Yeah, outrageous, frustrating, everything that you've just said right there. It's been really just horrible to see this video continue to surface. And then also, like you mentioned too, the reaction from this group of people who attacked the officers, making inappropriate hand gestures, rumors of them showing videos to their friends, bragging about the attack. And like you said, the officers who are risking so much, putting their lives on the line every day for this to happen to them. And I want to ask you too, because obviously recruiting and staffing at police departments across the country is also a major issue as well. And then you take into account the budget cuts that were announced several months ago in New York City. How do you see this impacting the department as a whole?
Well, the police department, from what the mayor is telling us, is not going to be impacted by it in terms of any further cuts. So that's good news for people. But the public safety issue, which 2 years ago, when we were talking on LiveNOW, was about the gangs, about the shootings, about these innocent bystanders being shot. Now the public safety issue is all around is all around migrants. I'll give you an example. We just did a whole show on location in Queens, in the Jamaica section of Queens, this past week for Street Soldiers here on Fox 5 for my show. And what we found was there was a restaurant owner. She's from El Salvador 40 years ago. She was a legal immigrant with her husband, built a restaurant up. It was a big hotel that was built up very near to her restaurant right after COVID. She thought it was going to be an influx of tourists. This is going to be great for business for her family type of restaurant. It was turned into a migrant shelter. The owner is, and like many other hotels in Queens, which according to the Chamber of Commerce, they say there's not a hotel room you can rent in the borough of Queens, which is the size of many major American cities, because all of these hotel rooms are being given to the migrants. The problem is they're eating outside. They're dumping huge bags of garbage outside her restaurant, which is spotless. It's beautiful. It features El Salvadorian food. She has regular clientele. They don't want to. Who wants to go into a restaurant when you have gigantic black garbage bags and half-eaten plates of other food just right on the ground there and right on the sidewalk? So there are these residual effects. There were also reports in Queens of migrants just going into people's houses looking for food. Like they weren't trying to rob it, they weren't trying to attack anybody, but just people that were used to leaving their back door open or whatever, and that in a residential community, and then finding them walking in the house. So there's a lot of criminal. There's a shoplifting element that's happening as well now, and I think that it's this is a tremendous concern. And like I said, it's very, like I see it, it's just very sad that the NYPD, they worked very hard to get a lot of guns off the streets here, which they did. They're really trying hard in this climate, anti-law enforcement climate where a lot of the laws are in favor of the criminals. They're trying very, very hard, and yet now comes this migrant problem, and you have people that you can't identify, people with no identification, people who are just here basically to scam the system any way they can. They're not fleeing political persecution. They're here for the freebies. They're here for the new sneakers. They're here for the new clothes. They're here for the free debit cards. They're here for the 30-day hotel stay in New York City. They were getting free phones. They were getting, for a while, until Mayor Adams trimmed it down, what he described as a full benefit package. That means health care. That means food cards, which we call the EBT cards or SNAP cards. The food. They were getting cash cards. They were getting the phones. I mean, it's unbelievable, and it's just really a lot of New Yorkers have had enough, because it's also disrupted in many unpredictable ways the lifestyle in certain communities where people were used to this. Now there's drug dealing. We were outside one shelter in another section of Queens where there were what appeared, and what I know as an experienced crime reporter from being on the streets, was apparent street level, hand-to-hand drug dealing going on down the block from the shelter, involving shelter residents. There were also, what one longtime resident told us there from the community, he said some of the women were using the hotel rooms for their own private personal services, shall we say. And that's what he was alleging. And he said this was well known in the community. But it's changing. Plus, all of the local restaurants, businesses that depended on people staying at these hotels, these newly built hotels, to support the local businesses which employ local residents, they're not benefiting, because the migrants obviously are patronizing them and not participating that way in the local economy. So it is a huge destabilizing factor. And Lexie, if I had $1 right now for every person that asked me, why isn't our government doing something about this, I would be a millionaire right now, because people are like, how can they allow this to be happening? We can't imagine what people in Texas have been dealing with for the last couple of years with this whole situation. And they're like, this is what is the end game here? What is the purpose? Why are Americans being put through this turmoil and this expense for what? What is the end game? And I don't have the answer. If you do or any of your guests do, please let us know.
Yeah, I wish I had an answer too, Lisa. But as always, with a topic like this that has brought so much frustration, you've done such a wonderful job explaining it and walking our viewers through where things stand right now. We'll certainly be looking ahead to Tuesday when the grand jury hears more of this evidence. But you're right, it shouldn't take something like this happening for people to be outraged and speak on it more. Obviously, it's been going on for a while, but to see this too really just heightens that frustration. So, Lisa, thank you for your time, and we'll be talking with you very soon.